Hello, this is Laughs of Apathy. Many of you have already heard of Obamacare, and obviously, because it was passed a couple of months ago, I guess, for the second time. I'm not really sure, but I know that it finally went through. It's not taken effect just yet, but there's been this whole debacle about it. Obviously, because of the website that just came up. The website that just came up like a couple months ago, 6 months ago, whatnot. They're having problems with it. End users were having problems with the Obamacare website and signing up for healthcare. And people, for real reasons, have been fucking flipping out over it. They'll be like, oh yeah, I can't sign up for it. Well, there's something wrong with the website. Obviously, when you're looking at it from an IT perspective, even just as a person who doesn't really know much about computers, but I'm coming at it from an IT perspective at the moment of time, just for the website. It's a website. It's not fucking difficult to build a website. You you code it with someone who's proficient in coding and web programming for it's probably JavaScript. There's obviously some HTML in there. There's probably a little bit of Java in there or something else like that. But web programming is pretty much like the simplest type of programming that you can do. Um, Preferably me, I don't like web programming, so it's a little bit tougher for me because I'm not very interested in doing it. But if you're going to do that for your job, then obviously you're going to be a little bit more knowledgeable about it than someone who's never programmed before in their life in any language, or me who's programmed but doesn't necessarily like web programming. So this website, as they had so many problems with it, um, generally it's been kind of difficult to get on the actual website, which is a network problem. I don't know whether it's individual ISPs or the network itself for the internal network to get those servers. Um, Pass the information through to each one of the end users using that, and then you come from the IT's perspective of system administration. And I'm just learning about system administration now. It's a little bit in depth, and I really want to get into it after I know enough, because it seems rather interesting. But I would think that if you would know enough information in order to be a system administrator, albeit being a database administrator or system administrator, and either proficient in either Linux-based systems, Unix-based systems, or Windows-based systems, with a general knowledge of what system administration entails, since you're talking about the U.S. government hiring a staffing agency, a consulting, IT consulting agency to get their servers up and running, and yet it's not. They're having problems, and they're saying, "Oh no, you know, technology and everything else like that. We're gonna have our problems with technology." No, that's not a acceptable answer. I'm sorry, but that's not acceptable. If you're gonna have the United States government hire a IT consulting industry that has contractors working for you, it's not a problem. There's no problem there. There's something else behind the scenes, and it's fucking obvious. It's fucking obvious. After you know all this stuff, there cannot be an issue that enormous that you have. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about everything when it comes to all of my knowledge that I accumulated during my years learning computer science, software engineering, and information technology, but I kind of doubt it. I kind of doubt that it's that hard to keep up a web page and all of the infrastructure behind it with people who are knowledgeable enough to get a job working for the United States government, setting up a system that's supposed to be employed to millions upon millions of people in the United States. There's not too many people. We have enough servers for that can be made. We have enough technology to take in the inload of these people working on the website. We have proficient enough people that know web programming very well. We know that we have enough infrastructure to basically handle the network load, and we have enough people that are working for this individual company, for the government, who are contracting for the government, that have a good enough knowledge base to understand how network administration goes with Cisco routers and Juniper routers and other network equipment out there. So I already pretty much have it in mind that this wasn't a mistake and that this was some sort of thing promoted by the US government to do one thing or the other. And I'm not going to say I know what it is, but it's pretty fucking obvious. Otherwise, after that big mishap, they've done a little bit more paperwork in that area, and finally they have it out again, and you're having people basically say now you can use the internet, or you can phone call someone, or you can meet someone in person, or you can use snail mail, or you can use email or something like that, whatever. I guess what they're trying to do is push to the United States people, oh, you know what? It might be just your computer. So, fuck off. You want to come to us and sign up for our program, which is mandatory, by the way, you can do either one of those. So, it's nearly impossible to not sign up for it, pretty much. Only if you're living somewhere in a hut in the middle of nowhere with no internet access and no telephone or phone or mail access, and you're millions of miles away from civilization. Otherwise, you're pretty much good. And if you're living that far from civilization, well, then you sort of have yourself another problem. There's a major problem when it comes to Obamacare, when it comes to the Affordable Health Care Act. Number one, it's not an affordable healthcare act. It's nowhere near universal healthcare like the progressives and the liberals want it to be, which it probably should be if we had a competent enough government to actually be human beings. We have a system that was set up by a bunch of lobbyists that work in the healthcare industry to make sure that they have a monopoly over the entire healthcare market. And they're working with the huge pharmaceutical companies that basically prescribe these medications and everything. Let me kind of break it down to you. The United States government has always had a very big interest working close with companies, working close with big, giant, megamaniacal companies ever since the beginning of the Industrial Age, beginning of the Industrial Revolution in the United States of America. In the United States of America, we have had about 4 or 5 different industries that basically took over the United States and their certain industries. We had the steel industry, railroad industry, which worked with the steel industry, by the way. In order to get a railroad put up that spanned the United States, they depended on steel in order to make that railroad. So we have the steel industry, the railroad industry, which also instituted different time zones within the United States to make sure that the trains would get to each station on time. And then we had the banking industry, as many people know, which was headed by JP Morgan. That's a whole nother story. I can go way into that, but I'm not talking about that now. And then you have a few other industries that came up eventually throughout a certain set of time period. Not exactly in the dawn of the industrial age, but they later on came to fruition. And the United States government basically took them in and said, you could keep a monopoly, just spread out a little bit, and but you can keep it because you're working with us in order you to do certain things so we get the most input from your company. So those companies have always been a monopoly, even though there's been subsidiaries of them that's worked with them. Pretty much how it is in the United States today. But I digress. The United States the United States pretty much has presidents that has always tried to pass some sort of healthcare reform through, and they've always pretty much failed for the most part, except for uh, Obama, who, well, at least on a federal level, Obama has worked with these healthcare agencies, insurance companies, and pharmaceutical companies in order to work with the United States government. They basically made some sort of deal with them to make sure that you had to be under the nationalized government healthcare program. But the government healthcare program is not just purely government. It doesn't go through your taxes. No. It doesn't do that. What it does is that it allows these huge companies to basically take you in and say, hey, you know what? You could be with us. We'll give you your health care, but you have to be with us, so be with us. So you choose from the little website that they have or whatever options that they give you. And this is called the healthcare marketplace. And the healthcare marketplace has a designated certain amount of healthcare industries. And they have their quotes and everything for who you are and everything. So you're just paying into a healthcare system that you pretty much had without Obamacare. You're paying into this, but there's another catch. You cannot be outside of that, even if your company that you're working for provides you with healthcare, provides you with benefits, because they have to actually abide by those same rules. They have to go under Obamacare and basically provide you with Obamacare's healthcare plans through any individual healthcare provider. There's another thing within the bill that makes it so that healthcare insurance companies cannot turn down anyone with any pre-existing conditions. This might seem like a good thing. This might seem like, hey, you know what? No matter what, I get healthcare. This is actually quite the opposite of that. And here's why. Healthcare healthcare companies have to make sure that they are taking a risk benefit analysis. They're taking you in hoping that you don't break your leg. But if you do, you paid them for a certain amount for your coverage based on your individual health history. So, if you break a leg, they pay for it because you paid them the certain amount of money. And that this is a gamble for these healthcare industries, and obviously some healthcare industries don't have enough money to do this for everyone. So they say if you have a pre-existing condition, we're sorry, we can't take you in. Because we can't afford to do that. That's that. This through and through. You can't afford to do that. And for the people who have pre-existing conditions that go to other companies, the other companies are like, you know what? We're going to have to raise your premiums a little bit because we're taking you in. We're able to take you in without taking too much risk, but we still have to even it out somehow. So it's going to cost you a little bit more, but at least you get health insurance. And before you could even choose not to have health insurance, you can even choose to bite the bullet and just, do whatever. And if you got a extravagant fee that you can pay for yourself, you could do it for your own money that you made through whatever you do as a career and not through your healthcare plan that you got from your boss or your manager or your company of any sort because you chose to work with the company that did not give you some benefit, like healthcare or dental or whatever. So you have two groups of people before this plan. One, you went with the healthcare insurance company. You either paid a little bit more because you had a pre-existing condition with a place that could do that sort of stuff, or you didn't have a pre-existing condition and you went with some other place that denied pre-existing conditions, but your premiums were lowered because they didn't have to take as much risk. The United States government has basically worked with lobbyists to ensure that their monopoly is a monopoly, that nobody else is able to encroach upon them. And still, the smaller companies are working with the United States government because that's the only way that they're going to be able to keep in business. But what they did to them was that they said, hey, you know what? We'll cover you for pre-existing conditions because, we're the United States government, but you have to work with us. You have to become a monopoly. Monopoly doesn't necessarily mean one company owns the entire thing. A monopoly could be one company or several companies that owe everything and basically do not have to take any bite in their own pockets because the government is covering them. You're not covering them. They no longer rely upon you because once that happens, they lose all accountability. They don't have to worry if they make a mistake or not because now they are too big to fail. What happened with this was that now we have a bunch of companies that are monopolies that will be subsidized by the United States government through currencies that is inflated every year by 3%. Therefore, the US dollar is losing its value by 3% every single year, but they're still subsidizing them for that, so all the bigwigs get all the money from the fucking government, and they don't have to worry about shit. They raise your premiums as much as possible, as much as they have to, meaning that it's only good for the people who are able to get in there, but have to pay more, meaning the rich people, pretty much. And the poor people and the middle class people and the struggling people that go in and they have to buy insurance, they either have to buy insurance and pay more because of the exuberant amount of fees that's going to happen because these individual companies that used to be a part of the free market now work with the United States government, meaning that they have to pay more for their premiums to go up because that's the only way that these insurance companies can survive. Because the government says, yes, you work with us, you have to accept pre-existing conditions, and you have to work on your own. But to certain individual companies, they say the same thing, but then they say you can work with us. So there's the monopolized businesses and the free market businesses that work under the umbrella of the United States government. And once those monopolized businesses that are in the free market, the free market businesses that worked in under the umbrella of the United States government because they have no choice, once they go down under because of their exuberant amount of fees that they have to pay, basically not they have to allow all pre-existing conditions. Eventually, they're going to lose their customers. They're going to lose the market because the monopolized businesses are going to raise their lower their premiums because they get the money from the United States government. Some people might say this is a good thing. This is not a fucking good thing. What happens? Free market crashes when it has to deal with those individual healthcare insurance companies. Everybody goes on to the monopolized market. Monopolized market subsidized by the United States government has no accountability for you and me. It has no accountability for anyone except to make sure that the U.S. government is happy and they have a little handshake going on. But between us, it doesn't matter because they monopolize the market. They own everything. You can't go to anyone else, and if you go to somebody else, you can't because there's only those few companies that work with the United States government. So it's either you go with them and you pay whatever they say you pay, which can be really, really high, by the way, or really, really low if they're feeling generous, which they probably won't. You're going to have to pay out the ass just enough so you can afford it, but there's not going to be really that much dispersed money that you're going to be able to buy after you go in with the ObummerCare companies that take over and destroy the free market in this industry. Or you don't go on healthcare insurance at all, and you get taxed, not a little bit, a fuckload. They tax you, they tax you, they tax you, they tax you. Each year it goes up by little, and then it shoots up in the air, and that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna fucking tax you out the ass until you have no fucking money. And then they're gonna put you on like food stamps and shit like that, saying it's from your own tax money. What they want to do is they want to monopolize the money. They want to, which they have with the US dollar, which they devalue every year by 3%. That means every single time a year passes by, you are making 3% less if you were making the exact same amount of money that you were making last year for your salary. So that means if you're making $65,000 a year as whatever you are now making 3% less every single year after that. That means maybe you could have bought groceries for $200 for your family for a week. Now it's 3% more than that. And that is why progressives, that is why liberals, that is why everyone should be against Obamacare.